Okay, so continuing on. I want to show you a little bit more over here in the toolbox to the left. We just kind of finished with a whole bunch of style. We kind of made our basic shapes, but from here, there's the selection tool that selects the whole object, or it could select this whole object, or this object, or this one, okay? We know that we can select multiple ones at different times. But right below that is our direct selection tool, or our node mover. In Illustrator, it would move our anchors. Here it moves our nodes. So here it is. It highlights these little corner spots. When I click on one, notice how it turned black? Okay, so I'm going to move it around a bit. Woo! Isn't that crazy? I can tap on the other one and I can move it too. I can move this down here. I could slide that down there. So when you click on it and it turns black or solid, it means that it is selected for some kind of change. Okay, so this is how you can actually make and adjust some unusual shapes. Right now it is set for up here, you can see in the style box. As soon as I use that tool, this little image popped up. Was never there before over here, but it is over here. Okay, so now I can, while that's highlighted, I can come over here and there are different kinds of creations. This is creating a corner because I moved a corner. But what if I want to round this thing off a little bit? As soon as I do that, we have these curved handles that show up. These control how much of an arc or a curve you're going to get out of it. Notice that the closer I pull, it's back to a corner. But if I start to pull them outward, it's now an arc, right? I can move this around into whatever kind of arc I might want to have. Maybe I want it to bulge downward rather than up. So anywhere there is an anchor point, I can select that. Let me come back up here. Looky there. So now I have this wonderful arc. I'm going to come and do this again, only I'm going to highlight this one. And I'm going to, well, let's hit this one again. And notice how it's a nice rounded curve now here. I'm going to teardrop it out. Isn't that crazy? So the handles control the amount of arc that happens from this point, this half, to this half of the circle or the curve. All right. And it's going to control how much happens over here. Now look what's happening. Every time I have touched down, it creates a new little handle area. I could click here and it has just created another area to create a curve with. So handles create curves, okay? How much of a curve, how little of a curve, how twisty of a curve I want. Now I have like a roller coaster thing going on, okay? So your nodes can be changed from something that is a corner, look at that, to something that is more rounded, okay, and has some pull or movability, okay? So you have the option of playing with the handles, okay? So those are moving together. This is just moving one side at a time, all right? Okay, so those are some cool features that we started with the rectangle, right? And it no longer looks like a rectangle, all right? So your nodes can move and be curved, all right? So there's a really cool feature. Can help you kind of specialize some stuff. All right, when I drew some shapes earlier, of this kind here. I'm going to delete this big guy. He's kind of in the way there. Boop. When I first started drawing, we just went with a basic rectangle, but something I need to show you is this. I'm going to turn off my stroke here. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to turn the little eyeball off. Look at that. Little eyeball says we don't necessarily want a drop shadow, and I don't really want an outline stroke. I just want the color. And I'm going to change the color here to something different so we can identify a little bit of difference. Pull me over to my blues. There we go. Okay. I'm going to go back down to the rectangle tool. Now, currently, this is going to be creating a rectangle for us. But this is what happens if I move this slider, okay? It's going to create more of a rectangle on this end and more of an oval or a circle on this end. Okay, look how my cup is full, okay? It is creating, if I hold at a slight angle there, it'll make me a circle. Or if I pull down a little bit, come on buddy, there we go. It'll create almost like a rounded button. It's no longer a square or a rectangle. So the extremeness of the curve kind of changes, and it will become a little less rounded and a little less rounded in corners the closer I get to the perfect square down there. And then now we're back to the hard edge. So notice how many different variations of squares, ovals, rounded, elongated rectangles we had. We went from square to this, to this, to this, ta-dun, ta-dun, ta-dun. So you got so many different variations there. It's kind of crazy and wacky. Now you're like, well, that's great. Circles and squares are wonderful, but what about more shapes? Okay, we have more shapes coming to you here. If we'll go back down to the shape maker, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to change our flavors again, just so that we can see the differences. If you go to tap the rectangle twice, or once you tap the rectangle, if you click the three little dots at the top, you will see the expansion of more shapes. So you have your square to circle, you have your polygon to a triangle. Crazy. You can start having fewer and fewer sides. Right now it's set for 6 sides. All right. So there's our 6-sided object. But if we come down here and we're like, that's great, but I want to move it on down to a triangle, then I got myself a triangle. If I want to move it to something that has, come on, I just drew it down there. If you want to move it to something that has, 4 sides, you're back to square again. All right. It's getting kind of crowded here, isn't it? Okay, let me get rid of some of these guys. Actually, better yet, let me show you one more fun trick. We're going to come over here at the top right, and we're going to click on the stack of papers. That would be our layers. So we are currently, everything right now is barfed up on one layer. I can turn this layer off because it's a little busy. I can turn it back on. I could lock it if I don't want anything to happen to it, and turn it off. Sweet. All right. And then right up here at the top, there's a little plus sign with more paper. That would be adding a layer. Okay. And when you add a layer, it tends to add it to above the one that you were just looking at. Okay. But what if I want a background color? I'm designing something and I want a background color. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to hold down on this layer and I'm going to, come on. I'm going to, if it cooperates with me, come on, there we go. I'm going to drag it so it is now below what I drew, okay? And we are going to tap this guy. We know this layer is selected because it's gray. The other one is a really dark gray, so it is sort of, it's asleep right now, plus we've turned it off. But we have highlighted layer 2, and again, it's one of those things where if you tap on it, you can name it. So I'm going to name this background. Okay, just so I have a name for it and I can identify it. I'm going to draw myself a square or a large rectangle. That's going to be our background. Okay, I'm going to just click and drag. Okay, so now of course it has gone back to a really ugly color. So I'm going to make this, I'd like to do something in a gray family if I could. There we go. That way all of our color is going to pop off of it. I'm going to go back over here to layers. And I'm going to turn this back on. Woo! Okay, so now we no longer are on a white background. We're on a gray background, right? I'm still going to turn that off so I can show you some more stuff. All right, back to shapes. I'm going to change color here. Going to come back. I need to, whoops, stop that. I need to deselect. I got carried away. All right. All right, so he's not selected anymore. I can draw on top of this if I want to. But I'm actually kind of afraid to draw on top of it. I don't want that background to move, so I'm going to lock it. and I'm going to add a new layer. Okay, this one is still kind of behind what we've drawn already, and I'm going to draw on this new layer because I don't want my background to be like moving all over on me. We will make a new color. We'll do something in the orange family for fun. All right, back to the shapes. Okay, I'm going to click up here on my three little dots, and we have our ellipse tool. Okay. Oh, it's still set to a background. Let's come over here. Let's turn that background off. Doop. All right. So we have an ellipse tool, and you can always modify, spin, turn, drag, bigger, smaller. Okay, move in, move out, whatever you want with them. We then also have our option for stars. This is always kind of cool. It's basically always set for a 5-point star, but you could, play with however many points you want. You can just like, woo, bust this thing out and give it, gobs and gobs of points to it. Again, the other cool thing is you can make these things adaptable and unique to you by whatever you do to the nodes. Okay, so I just pinch zoomed in closer so I could see what I was doing. And look at that. When I tap on that shape, look how many nodes there are. Every line has a node at every corner, right? So I could stretch these things. I could come in sooner. I could make this one do crazy stuff. I could come in. I could come over, up. Remember, we could round things. So maybe these look like flowers. Oh, how sweet. We mix your flowers. All right. So you could do all kinds of things. Inverted, concave, convex, you name it. So you have so much multiplicity as far as how you move anchor points, how you want to curve them, how you want to move the curves. Look at that. I just made it, a flatter little thing, a closer little daisy petal than a long one. So you've got so much flexibility in just creating with this thing in our basic shapes you've seen so far. How nuts is that? Okay. Your hand tool kind of still allows you to kind of move around your canvas. So even though, if you're lazy and don't want to pinch zoom and move it around, you can move it around with that. And notice when I'm pinch zooming, you can see where my fingers are at, right? Okay. So those are just some cool features there. All right. Last little thing. What if you wanted to merge some shapes together? Like, I think this is pretty crazy. This is kind of fun. I'm going to pull this over on top of here. And what if I want these two, this shape and this shape, to be permanently stuck together? Okay. Actually, let me come along here and let me do, where is my stroke? There we go. Let me outline stroke this here. Let me give it a dark stroke color. Ooh, and let's make it a little thinner because this is kind of fat there. Let me kind of go a little thinner. All right, so that guy's got an outline stroke. Let's click this guy and give him the same outline stroke. Okay. So there we go. So they both have this outline stroke around them. So I would like to merge those two things together. Okay. And make one big crazy happy shape. Now, I'm going to use my selection tool here, and you can either drag over both of them. So I just dragged my finger and made a marquee around them so that it covered both of them. Or I could do the select more than one shape option and go click, click. Okay, so there's more than one way to select your items. Now, up to the top right, not the paintbrush, not what looks like the baseball diamond, but where the two rounded rectangles look like they're coming together. Okay, this is called the boolean, and the boolean allows us to, it's kind of like our pathfinders and our merging that will be able to happen in Illustrator. And this little icon right here where the two are both solid, that means they've melded into one shape. If I click on that, look at that, man. Now, this is one little tiny negative space that was left over where they didn't overlap. Isn't that crazy? So it's like I could undo that, and then I could like move that guy up a little bit so it's in there and we don't have that. So let me go and let's do select, and I'm going to come back and hit that again. Look at that. Is that not crazy? So you can tell now, because it's outlined, that the outline, everything just merged together. it just morphed. And here I have this crazy mushroom-like shape. Actually, if I turn it like this, and maybe if I turned it a different color in a crazy way, it kind of looks like the Grinch. All right, so we've got all these different things that we can do with it, and this is just the start. This is the tip of the iceberg. These are the most basic shapes and objects that we have. And look at how much we can do with just these. And that way, you know, I could turn this back on and then it just looked like, you know, fruit flavors just barfed all over the page. But I just wanted to at least show you how you could have things on, you could have things off. You can make new layers. You can turn layers off. You can change and adapt colors, outline strokes, fills, and there's so much more to learn later, but these are just sort of the beginning basics. So have fun and play a little bit.